back to This Week in Connecticut on this Sunday morning. News 8, of course, is your local election headquarters. And this coming November, your ballot will give you a choice for president, U.S. Senate, Congress, and yes, absentee voting. And joining us now is State Representative Matt Blumenthal, Democrat of Stamford. And Representative Blumenthal, good to see you here in the program.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're talking about early absentee voting with no excuses, right? So how does the law currently work?
So currently we have one of the most restrictive absentee voting laws in the country. We only have 6 reasons you can get an absentee ballot. And in fact, those reasons are in our state constitution. So the state legislature, the General Assembly can't change them. Currently, 36 states and the District of Columbia have something called absentee voting for everyone, which is where every eligible voter who wishes to vote by absentee can do so. And so on everyone's ballot this fall, there will be a measure for a constitutional amendment to approve absentee voting for everyone here in the state of Connecticut. We can finally join those 36 other states and the District of Columbia that make voting more accessible, more secure, and more efficient.
What happens if it passes in November? Is it a done deal?
It simply enables the legislature to pass a bill on the subject. So it'll clear the reasons specified in the state constitution and then allow the state legislature to say under what conditions people can obtain an absentee.
So right now, if you and your colleagues wanted to change it, you couldn't unless the voters approved it.
Exactly.
So what is wrong with the current system? You know, opponents will say, well, what's wrong with the way we have it? You go to your town hall or you apply for an absentee ballot. What's difficult about that?
So currently, these 6 reasons only cover certain situations. So if you are out of town on the day of the election, if you have sickness, physical disability, or your religious dictates prevent you from participating. But under our state constitution, if you are, for instance, at work all day long or you work multiple jobs, but you're in town, you can't get an absentee ballot, you're deprived of your right to vote. If you are sick or you have a disability or you're a senior, you may have a circumstance that doesn't meet the state constitutional reasons. This will increase accessibility for folks across the board.
And so some will say, well, what about early voting? Doesn't that take care of that problem?
That's a great question. So it takes care of a bit of it, but what we have right now is an extremely fractured and siloed election system because these absentee ballot regulations are stuck in our state constitution. And we've heard a lot from the registrars how difficult it is to administer early in-person voting when absentee voting is so restricted. So if we pass this measure, we'll be able to legislate and implement a system of voting that's most efficient from the taxpayer's perspective and from the folks who are administering our elections.
Some who are against this say that this just heightens the possibility of fraud in elections. What's your response to that?
Well, just the opposite. Exhaustive studies and investigation across the 36 states and the District of Columbia, where absentee voting for everyone are already the law of the land, show that fraud in those places is, quote, vanishingly rare. And we know we've had issues here in Connecticut. And so we're kind of running an experiment against the rest of the country that's doing this, and it's not going well for Connecticut. And so we need to change that. This increases security through several means. It means that, first of all, we have the increased access, but also there's not the focus on a discrete group of individuals. In fact, most of the election improprieties that have been alleged over the past 20 or so years have to do with people who tried to get a ballot to someone who wasn't eligible under our strict laws. Those strict laws, they increase the chance of being a trap for the unwary, and they also encourage people to cheat if they're unethical.
This is a presidential election, so we expect voter turnout to be higher than normal. No polling really done on this that we know of, unless you've heard something. I mean, how do you expect this to go? So
there has been some polling on it. For folks who are aware that it's happening and understand what absentee voting for everyone is, they overwhelmingly support it, roughly 60-40. But it's up to us to get the word out. We're finally able and in a position to join most of the rest of the country that makes absentee voting accessible to every eligible voter. And I think we should say yes and pass it this fall.
All right, finally I have to ask you a couple of fun questions. We're talking about your dad a little bit later on in the program because Ann Nyberg talks about him, but what is it like to be Senator Richard Blumenthal's son? Will he call you after this interview and say, hey, I think you should have said this?
You know, I'm not going to talk about our conversations, especially if they're critical about me. I don't know. Hopefully I did a good job. But one of the things that is nice about kind of being in the same business and in the same state is we run into each other at events every once in a while. It's not the worst thing in the world to see your dad at work, and especially unexpectedly, because he is everywhere. So
he certainly is. Does he give you advice at all?
Yeah, he's a great resource, and I would say the best advice he's ever had is that politics is about people, governance is about people. Listen to the people and try to solve their problems. And so that's what I've been trying to do in my role.
Well, the first time I met your dad, I interviewed him in his office right after your sister was born. So that's a long time ago. She's what? Well, she's younger than you, but...
I won't give away her age. I'm not sure if that would be politic, but...
Well, I've been here 32 years, I'll tell you that. So anyway, well, Matt Blumenthal.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here in the program. Still ahead, a movie premiere and a special golf outing near and dear to my heart. We'll be right back, and we welcome you to connect with us here on This Week. You can email me or find me on social media. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. We love your suggestions, your comments, and your suggestions as to what we should do our best.